It's still dark in Los Angeles. The streets are quiet enough that you can hear your own shoes on the sidewalk. A woman steps out early for a walk. Nothing dramatic. Just air, just morning. Then she sees something in a vacant lot. At first, her brain does what brains always do. It tries to make it normal. A mannequin. A store display. A movie prop. Because the alternative is too heavy to hold at 6:30 a.m. But it isn't a mannequin. It's a young woman, cut clean in two. No blood pooled in the dirt. No drag marks. No footprints that lead anywhere useful. Just a body placed like a message. And before the day ends, Los Angeles will be screaming one name. The Black Dahlia. A murder so brutal, so theatrical, and so perfectly timed for the media machine that nearly 80 years later, it's still officially unsolved. And here's the part that makes it worse. The story you think you know? The story everyone repeats? A lot of it is wrong. Tonight we're going to strip it down to what actually happened, who she was, what the killer wanted the world to see, and why the case became a permanent open wound in American true crime. Because this isn't just one murder. It's the moment Los Angeles learned that fame can be a weapon. Los Angeles in the 1940s is a promise with a price tag. The war is ending. Jobs are booming. Hollywood is glowing like a furnace. And the city is full of people chasing the same thing. A new life. A new name. A new chance to be seen. Late at night, the neon never fully shuts off. You've got streetcars, smoky jazz rooms, cheap rentals, and coffee shops that stay open because sleep is optional when you're hungry enough. This is important because when we talk about diner crime, we're not talking about one single restaurant with a sign out front. We're talking about a whole ecosystem. All-night counters, soda fountains, coffee shops where waitresses learn your name and strangers ask personal questions like it's nothing. Places where you can sit under bright lights and still be invisible. That's the Los Angeles Elizabeth Short arrives in. A city where hope is common and safety is not. Elizabeth Short isn't born into a headline. She's born in 1924 in Massachusetts. She grows up during the Great Depression in a family that has its own cracks. And like a lot of young women of that era, she learns early that life isn't fair, but it does respond to performance. You can be quiet and be ignored, or you can be charming and be remembered. Elizabeth becomes the kind of person people describe in fragments. Pretty, polite, flirtatious, lonely, always moving. And the moving matters. Because if you want to understand this case, you have to understand one thing. Elizabeth Short didn't have a stable center of gravity. She drifted through cities, jobs, friends, acquaintances. She stayed with people. She left. She showed up again somewhere else. To the police, that's frustrating. To a killer, that's useful. She's in Florida. She's in California. She's in and out of people's lives like a ghost who still pays for coffee. And somewhere along the way, the nickname appears. Black Dahlia. Not a name she chose like a brand. A name the media would later use like a knife. The last confirmed stretch of Elizabeth Short's life is a puzzle made of receipts, memories, and unreliable witnesses. She's seen in various places. She talks to people. She makes plans. But nothing solid sticks. Here's what we do know about the final phase. Elizabeth is trying to get by. She doesn't have steady money. She relies on friends and temporary help. And she spends time in the kinds of places where nobody thinks to document anything. Coffee shops. Lobbies. Transit stops. Rental rooms. Street corners where the city looks away. This is where the diner feeling comes in. Because the 1940s version of a diner is a node in a network. A place you can be fed, warmed, and watched without being protected. And if you're the kind of person drifting through the night, those places become your calendar. Who's working tonight? Which counter is open? Who might offer a ride? Elizabeth is last seen alive in early January 1947. And then she disappears. Not in a dramatic way. In the most dangerous way. Quietly. January 15, 1947. A vacant lot in the Limerick Park area. Then a developing neighborhood with open spaces and scrub ground. A woman walking with her child spots what looks like a discarded mannequin. But it's a body, posed, cleanly severed, and drained of blood elsewhere. The scene is shocking for reasons that are hard to overstate. The body is bisected with precision. The skin is pale and oddly clean, as if washed. The placement is deliberate, like the killer wanted the discovery. This isn't a panic killing. This is a performance. That matters because it tells us something about the killer's mindset. He's not hiding. He's staging. And when a murderer stages a scene, they're doing it for an audience. In this case, the audience is the entire city. Before the police can control the narrative, newspapers do what newspapers do. They run. They print. They sensationalize. They add details that make the story pop, whether those details are verified or not. And then the killer adds fuel. Soon after, media outlets receive strange communications, items belonging to Elizabeth, mailed in a way that suggests the sender wants attention. That's how this case becomes more than a homicide investigation. It becomes a spectacle. And once a case becomes a spectacle, a few things happen. False confessions multiply. Innocent people get pulled in. Real clues get buried under noise. This case doesn't just have suspects. It has characters. And the press loves characters. Now, pause. Because if you've heard about this case before, you've probably heard the same three claims over and over. Claim number 1. Elizabeth was a glamorous Hollywood starlet. Claim number 2. She lived some wildly secret double life. Claim number 3. The killer was obviously this one guy, and the police just missed it. But the truth is messier. Elizabeth wasn't famous. She wasn't a movie star. She was a young woman trying to stay afloat. And the killer? The killer is the reason the story feels like a movie. Because he made it look like one. Crimes like this have two layers. The act itself. The message the act is trying to send. The physical reality is horrific. But the message is what turns this into legend. The severing, the cleaning, the positioning, those are all choices. And choices tell us about skill and intent. This wasn't random violence in a moment of rage. At minimum, the killer had time, privacy, control, and the nerve to transport and place the body without being noticed. So ask yourself, who had the kind of environment where they could do that? And what kind of person believes they can outsmart an entire city? Because the Black Dahlia case isn't just unsolved. It's taunting. The LAPD is now under pressure that doesn't come from the murderer. It comes from everyone else. The public wants answers. The press wants headlines. Politicians want reassurance. And the police need a suspect, fast. Tips pour in. Thousands. Some are sincere. Many are nonsense. Some are malicious. And then, there are the confessions. People confess to famous crimes for attention, mental illness, or because they want to control a narrative. The Black Dahlia case becomes the perfect magnet for this. Because it's famous, graphic, and open. So investigators are juggling. Real leads. Fake leads. Confessions. And public panic. And here's the key problem. The more famous a case becomes, the harder it is to solve, because the signal-to-noise ratio collapses. Here's the hard truth about last seen alive timelines. They are usually built out of human memory. And human memory is not evidence. It's a story people tell themselves after the fact. A witness remembers a date wrong. Someone confuses two nights. A person sees a woman with dark hair and fills in the rest later. And in a case this famous, memory becomes contaminated. So investigators tried to lock down the strongest points. Where was Elizabeth staying? Who did she call? Who saw her in the final 48 hours? But Elizabeth's life didn't leave tidy paperwork. She moved through informal spaces, friends' couches, casual acquaintances, short stays. She was the kind of person who could vanish for a day, and nobody would call it unusual. That's not an accusation. That's vulnerability. Anytime a young woman is murdered, the public instantly builds a mythology. She must have been involved with dangerous men. She must have known something. She must have lived a secret life. Sometimes that's projection. But in this case, yes, there were men around Elizabeth. Because men were around women constantly in that era, especially women without stable resources. A ride, a meal, a place to stay, a favor. And in a city like Los Angeles, the dynamic can shift from help to control fast. Some men who knew Elizabeth were probably harmless. Some were opportunists. And one, just one, was a killer. The question is, which one? A recurring theory is that the killer had medical knowledge. Why? Because of how clean the severing appeared, and because the body was drained of blood elsewhere. Now, careful. Look skilled doesn't always mean was a surgeon. It could mean experience with tools, knowledge from butchery, familiarity with anatomy from non-medical work, or simply time and repetition. But the staged, clean placement suggests planning, and planning suggests a killer who didn't just snap. This was a person who prepared. When a killer communicates, directly or indirectly, it changes everything. Because it tells you the crime isn't only about killing. It's also about recognition, fame, control. If you can force the city to read your message, you've already won something. And that's why the Black Dahlia case becomes a mirror. The killer wants attention. The media wants attention. The public wants attention. And somewhere inside that triangle, the truth gets squeezed. Let's be blunt. 1947 investigations had limitations. Forensic science was not what it is now. Evidence handling procedures were inconsistent by modern standards. Coordination between agencies was rough, and media pressure distorted priorities. Also, time. Every day that passes, witnesses move, forget, die. Records disappear. Rumors harden into facts. And this case had an additional curse. It was famous immediately. Fame doesn't just preserve a case, it warps it. By now, the Black Dahlia case isn't just a cold case. It's a legend. And legends are dangerous because they turn real people into symbols. Elizabeth Short becomes a nickname, a photograph, a cautionary tale. But she was a person. And every time the story gets told like entertainment, something gets lost. The part where a young woman's life ended, and the person who did it never faced a courtroom. So why does this case stick, generation after generation? Because it has the perfect ingredients. A city built on images. A victim turned into a character. A killer who staged the crime like theater. And an investigation swallowed by its own fame. It feels like the killer wrote a script, and the world keeps rereading it. Here's the question that haunts this case. Did the killer know Elizabeth personally? Because there are two versions of this crime. Version A, a random predator encounters a vulnerable young woman. Version B, someone in her orbit, someone she trusted enough to be alone with, turned her into a display. Both are possible. But the level of control suggests access. And access usually comes from proximity. That's why investigators kept circling her final contacts, her social web, and her last known movements. The killer didn't need to be a celebrity. He didn't need to be brilliant. He just needed three things: opportunity, privacy, and the confidence that the city would never truly see him. Unsolved cases generate theories the way heat generates mirages. And the Black Dahlia case is a theory factory because it's emotionally intense, it's visually shocking, and it's old enough that anyone can insert themselves into the story. Books get written. Suspects get named. Claims get repeated. Some people truly believe they've solved it. But belief isn't proof. And what this case suffers from most is 1,000 confident answers built on uncertain foundations. Modern cold case breakthroughs usually come from one of three things: DNA, if biological evidence exists and was preserved; retested physical evidence, improved methods on old items; a credible confession with verifiable details, not just a story. The tragedy is we don't always know what evidence survived, what was contaminated, or what was lost. But if anything meaningful remains, anything at all, modern forensics could help. And that's the last door that stays open. Because time ruins memories, but it can preserve molecules. Let's return to that picture. A late-night coffee shop. In 1947, it's not a trendy aesthetic, it's survival. A place you can sit without being asked questions. A place where strangers drift through. A place where loneliness looks normal. If the Black Dahlia killer was the kind of predator who hides in crowds, where would he be? Not in a shadowy alley like a movie. In the brightest place in the night. A counter. A booth. A quiet smile. Because predators don't look like villains. They look like customers. And that's why this case still feels close. It could have been anyone. It could have been someone you'd hold a door for. The Black Dahlia case did something to America's imagination. It fused true crime with celebrity culture. It taught the media that horror sells. And it taught killers, whether we like it or not, that attention can be part of the reward. But it also left a permanent lesson. When a person lives on the margins, the world often doesn't notice until it's too late. Elizabeth Short was not destined for tragedy. She was vulnerable in a city that profits off dreams. And someone used that. So here's where we land. The Black Dahlia case isn't unsolved because nobody cared. It's unsolved because the case was attacked from every angle at once. A killer who staged the crime like theater. A media storm that flooded the investigation. An era with limited forensic tools. And a victim whose life didn't leave clean records. And somewhere in all that noise, the truth slipped through. But if you take one thing from this documentary, let it be this. Mysteries don't stay mysteries because they're too complicated. They stay mysteries because the right facts never meet the right moment. And if that moment ever comes, if a piece of preserved evidence gets tested, if a hidden record surfaces, if a credible confession appears, then one day, after all this time, the Black Dahlia might stop being a legend and finally become a solved case.